I'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for raising funds for nonprofits. And this is something, if you're a nonprofit, you want to get your sponsor, your business sponsors to hang out with you, on this podcast. You might say, well, why? Because raising money for nonprofits, it's the same principle as growing your business. So you can have your business, you have the business owners that, you could actually include this as part of, say, hey, we'll get professional coaching. If you donate at this level monthly or something like that, we'll let you join us for a podcast. And so everything that we're learning to raise money for a nonprofit, it's the same exact principles as building your business. It's the same thing. It's just slight different application, but the core is the same thing. So we've gone through and we said, okay, the foundation, the 530 grid in box one. Okay, did you do your assignments? Justin's amazing. And so, how do we get into flow? And then, the 530 grid plus fundraising plus life GPS. So today's kind of a working session, So we're not really sure what we're going to cover today. I don't really like my driver analytic does not like that. It just doesn't like it. In Life GPS, the mobile app, that's designed to go ahead and essentially, reach 8 billion plus billion people in the world. And so it's got a lot of really cool tools. So Justin talked about, maybe getting some of his people to join us for this call. And he said it's been hard to do that. And so I understand that. And so how do we go ahead and get them to join us? Essentially, we've got to sell them. You wouldn't think that a half an hour a week would be that big of a commitment for people. But it seems to be. It's hard. So you got to sell them. So how do you sell them? Well, you go back to the 530 grid. And so, once you get them in here, so you ask questions. So what questions do you ask them? Well, volunteers, like you have the inner core volunteer, Justin, and then you have the next tier and the next tier and the next tier. So like a target.
Right.
And so I would want to know, what their life vision is. I would want to know their passions. I would want to know their biggest challenge. So if we can help them in some area of their life, like if they participate in the Saturday podcast, and we help them with their marriage, or we help them with their business, or we help them with their time, or we help them with their stress, or we help them with whatever they need help with. But we have to know that information.
Right.
And so there's, in here, so there's a solution library. And so, Adam or Saad, make sure we get this link around this podcast. There's a survey library. And the survey library is really cool. So there's a 7-second Allen survey. There's a 3-minute personality survey. There is an association community leadership survey. There's a membership survey. And then there's a speaker author survey. So you click on any of these and there's a survey. It's pretty cool. So you ask questions, So by asking questions, people have Nora and I are working on something is how do you get people to care? Nobody cares anymore. It's just weird. They just don't, which is fine. It is what it is. It is what it is. And so, but what do they care about? Something probably. And so if you can connect what they care about into what they're doing, um, what you're doing, and bring and connect the dots. People don't know how to connect the dots. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, okay, I'm having challenges. Let's say hypothetically, you ask somebody their biggest challenge, and it's like, I'm having challenges with my 16-year-old daughter. Okay. She got attitude issues. Okay. And she's narcissistic, self-centered, self-absorbed. She thinks she's the center of the universe. Okay. So as a dad, that's you realize this is not going to go well for her in life. It's just not. So let's say that's your biggest challenge. What's the solution? How can we solve that? How about doing volunteer work together? Like, well, that would help.
Yeah.
Like I took my oldest daughter when she was 11, I took her over to Africa or took her over to Russia and we spent, a couple weeks in Russia. My oldest son took him over to Africa when he was 13. Why? The number one reason, for them was to give them perspective and understand how valuable, how good they have it. You bring your 16-year-old daughter onto this podcast, I'll spin her head. Like I know what she's interested in. Like it's interesting. My 15-year-old son, or he was 16, 15 or 16, he was talking to my grandmother, his great grandmother. He was 15, she was 95 years old, 80 years different. So they're sitting on the couch in the living room. I'll never forget this. He's 25 now. So that was 10 years ago. So he's sitting on the couch, and my grandma, she's sitting next to him. She says, "So Ben, what do you like doing?" And he says, "Hanging out with friends, Grandma." And she's like, "So Ben, like when you hang out with friends, what do you guys talk about? What do you guys do?" And he kind of looks at her and cocks his head, and then he's speechless. He doesn't know what to say. And she says, "Oh, Ben, don't worry about it. I know what you do." And he like gets this blush and red face, and she's like, "You talk about how hard your parents are on you, and you talk about girls. 80 years difference." And she just nails it
Nailed it.
right. Like she creates a connection. So a 16-year-old girl, I know I have had 4 16-year-old girls. Like I know 16-year-old girls. I know. So what they're doing is they're interested in guys. They're having body issues, connection issues, they're self-conscious issues. They're concerned and they have all these emotions and all this drama stuff. And all like she's confused, but she's thinking like there's another couple years before I'm out of high school and maybe I'm going to college, maybe I'm not, maybe I have a boyfriend, maybe I don't. And so she's curious, you know like we had 2 16-year-old girls that did interns with us, and one of them came up and said, "Hey, Mark, could you and your wife go out to lunch with my boyfriend and I?" Like like who does that? like like and I knew her parents, so I knew they'd be okay with it. It's like, yeah, they're fine. They're just, yeah, Mark just does this, it's fine. But what 16-year-old girl wants an adult to meet her boyfriend? Not a lot. What I didn't anticipate is I didn't think about covering my bases with the boys' parents. Like, oops. And so the boys' parents were like, what? What's going on here? Why is she interested in it? Same reason my kids were interested. Like they'd be dating somebody new and they'd bring them and introduce them to me and they'd say, Dad, can you do that really cool stuff you do on, people? Who does that? Like most most kids aren't interested in their parents really connecting with, but my kids were, because there's really cool stuff about personality and insights into it and stuff like that in the business world. So if you're a nonprofit, you bring value to business owners and they're more likely to go ahead and support you. So do you want to go ahead and have a gift given to your organization, your nonprofit, because they care about your nonprofit, and they believe in it? Do you want them to do it out of that motivation, or do you want them to do it out of, well, I'm giving the gift because I want to make money? You probably are saying, listen, Mark, I don't really care as long as they give money. like, I just want money. Like, they say they care. I might go ahead and help them, save $100,000 and stuff. And they give me $500 or $50. Thanks. Really appreciate that generosity. But what we ideally want them to do is, they give us something and they look at it like I give 500 and I get 5,000. I give 5,000, I get 50,000. We want to do that. And so you as a nonprofit can help, by bringing value. And Life Masteries Institute, Life Masteries Institute has a lot of resources that you can give to, people who contribute to your organization. So there's a hiring, recruiting, onboarding survey. There's an action card. There's a 3-minute personality survey. There's a level 2 team member survey, a level 3 team member survey. There's the 530 grid survey. This is really cool. I mean, they're all cool, and so go through these. And then there's a level business, a 5-level business assessment. And then there's flawless execution, flawless thinking survey. Then there's things in life for their employees. So there's a career success survey. There's a 3-minute personality survey. There's a 17-second mobile app personality survey. There's, discover or join a life vision group. Like, if you're the employer, if you're the business owner, do you want to go ahead and help your employees achieve their life vision? Do you think your employees will maybe be a little more productive if you're concerned for them? Novel concept. Do you think if you go ahead and, so here's a couple of personality survey. You could, as a nonprofit, and all of these are free. There's no cost to them. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. And so there's a whole bunch of tools that are available, for Life Masteries Institute. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. And one of the things that they hope to get to is where they're generating so much funds. They're not yet, but they're, it's getting closer, where they want to generate so most nonprofits, they take money, they don't give money. I'm not saying it's a black hole. I'm just saying, most nonprofits aren't in a situation where they're generating so much money that they don't know what to do with it. There's not very many of those.
Yeah.
And so Life Masteries wants to be that nonprofit. That's their goal. And so until they get to that money-wise, they do go ahead and have a lot of tools that your nonprofit can give to businesses to get businesses to give to you. And Life Masteries doesn't need to even take a cut of that. They don't need to do that. If you want to give to Life Masteries Institute as a nonprofit, you're free to do that. I mean, I think it'd be good. I think you'd go ahead and get a lot more than you give. They're crazy. I've volunteered, been on the board of a number of nonprofits. And I've never been involved in a nonprofit like Life Mastery. There's some insane people in that group. they think that, the cause that they're supporting, the causes they're supporting are not the only causes in the world, and your causes, just as important to you as their causes are to them. It's a really fascinating group of people. So, in this, in going after, and then they've got businesses that are core part of, theirs. And so there's coffee connections that you can set up. And so right here, so there's coffee connections, and you can do like we do virtual ones on Tuesday and Thursday. So for a half an hour on Tuesday from 4 o'clock to 4:30 virtually. And this is all through Life Masteries Institute, and they don't charge anything for that either. Like, then there's one on Thursdays at 6:30 Eastern time, 4 o'clock on Tuesdays Eastern time. That's the virtual, coffee connection. So you could invite your businesses, people who own their own businesses to that there too. So if we can go ahead and help businesses, like my experience, like there's this impression, business owners, they just are terrible at public relations. They just are. They're not good at public relations. And so, but it's interesting as I've traveled all around the world, people may like America, may not like America. They might or might not. But I've never met anybody that doesn't like an American business owner. Like, just saying. Now, some of the big businesses, I would say they may not like, but some of the big businesses, America doesn't like them either. Like,
Yeah.
deal with it. But they think everywhere I've gone, they're like, "Ooh, you're an American business owner. Like, you're really successful." Well, I mean, I work hard. I don't know if I'd say successful, but they have this impression of the entrepreneurial spirit in America, and it's true.
Yes. Yeah.
Some some big companies, I don't know. These little companies turn into big companies, and then they think the world revolves around them. Like I have 4 daughters, and when they were little, they were cute. Now, as they get older, sometimes they're not as cute. They're like, really? Like, anyways, so there's a whole bunch of opportunities to bring value to businesses. And where's that come from? It comes from a heart that my dad was a pastor. So I grew up as a pastor's and a missionary's kid, as I've said, on other podcasts. And so, like, I learned how to be a businessman by being a pastor's kid. Like, we'd start a church and it would be in like our home. I remember the first service in the Chicago suburbs, and the first service we had 2 families that came to our house. So my parents, like I'm an introvert. So I'm shy and I love people. I just don't like them. And so, so my parents would go ahead, like when you have somebody come into the church, Mark, to come into our house, you got to greet them, even if you're 12 years old or 9 years old. Like, you got to help, like, meet with their kids, connect with them. So they taught us how to go ahead and bring value to people that well, that helped me in business a lot. So people say, where'd you get your entrepreneurial skills? It's, from my dad and mom.
Right.
So they'd go in, start a church, get it up and going. My dad would turn it over to another pastor. He'd go out and start another church. He started 5, I think, which is pretty interesting. And so I gave a lot of money, a boatload of money to churches, even when I was a teenager. Like, it was crazy. Like, I'm in soccer, and I'm making a lot of money. I mean, a lot of money as a teenage boy. I mean, buku's amount of money. During the summer, I'd have 2 full-time jobs and 4 part-time jobs. I mean, I'm working 100-hour weeks. It's nothing. And I'm saving everything. So my parents taught us to work hard and don't spend any money. Their philosophy in life was just really, it's easy. Dave Ramsey, he does a great job. I recommend that you go through his stuff. But my parents had a simpler simpler financial management thing. Just work hard and don't spend any money. Nothing. Just don't spend it. Like, what a novel concept. Like, you'll end up with a lot of money. So they taught us, just don't spend any money. So I'm this teenage boy, and I'm giving hundreds, thousands of dollars to the church. I don't know why, just because it's the right thing to do. I don't know. My parents didn't make me do it. I just thought, wow, this makes sense, makes sense. And so literally I'm giving hundreds, thousands of dollars to the church as a teenage boy because I think it's the right thing to do. And I go on, soccer road trips, and I go to McDonald's, and I love Big Macs, love them like crazy. But I didn't buy a Big Mac. I bought a fish sandwich. Why? Because, I could save 25 cents. Like, it's just weird. Like, what 15-year-old boys do that? Give thousands of dollars away, and you don't go ahead and you scrimp on. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, a little strange. As I got older, I started to see, like, I remember once we had, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 in extra profit, like more than we had anticipated. And we sat down with our 7 kids and said to our 7 kids and said, hey, kids, we've got an extra, $25,000, $30,000 in profit this year. So we could go ahead and, put an in-ground pool in. Like, we could go on a vacation. We don't drive fancy cars. We could get, nicer cars, and, or we could give the money to the church. What do you kids want to do? We gave money we gave it all to the church.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know. And so it's like, then as I got older, I'm like, and my board of directors, advisory board, they're like, Mark, we think you're giving way too much money to the church. And then after, 24 years of doing that, the church I give all the money to kicked me out. Why? Because it's my dad's church. Another story, another time. Mark, do you still go to church? I still do. Why? Good question. I'm not sure. Like, I think there's a lot of good things, but why? Because I didn't think they weren't being honest with the congregation. Nobody was stealing money. Like, nobody was stealing money, but I didn't think they were becoming an inward focused church. Like, they were focused on themselves. And I'm like, this is not going to be healthy. So I, confronted the pastor, who was my best friend, and confronted my brother, who was the associate pastor, and they kicked me out of the church. I'm like, really, dudes? Like, so I see how nonprofits, they want business owners because they want money, and they want leadership and technology. I mean, business people, they can be a pain in the tush. Don't get me wrong. I've seen some business people do a major number on nonprofits. So I see the downside too. They're not all whatever, but they don't give back to, the nonprofit doesn't give back to the business.
Right.
And it's not because the nonprofit doesn't want to. They do want to. They just don't know how. And it's not easy. So that's what Life Masteries plays the role as. Life Masteries plays the role where they can go ahead and help nonprofits. They got the tools, the systems, the infrastructure. Like, you're probably thinking, as a nonprofit, Mark, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources to go ahead and do all. Good news is you don't have to. Like, Life Masteries, they can do everything. All you got to do is make the introduction, and they can make you look really good. They don't need to take any credit. They don't need to say, hey, we gave you this, you need to give to us. Like with Justin's nonprofit, Life Masteries will say, hey, Justin gave you this. He provided all of this for you. Give to him. Like, give to him. They don't need to make the money. They're run lean and mean. I mean, they are really not like any other nonprofit I've ever been. Sometimes nonprofits, they're more hungry for money than for-profits. And I get it too. You got to go ahead and pay your bills, and you got to do the things that you do. So there's no judgment. I understand it, but some of these nonprofits, they go ahead, and, 70, 80, 90% of everything you give goes to raising more money. Not Justin's. Justin is coming out of his own pocket. Like
A lot of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, he takes the risk, and so he's like, "Up, well, that didn't work. I gotta." So let me tell you, to me, that's where my heart is. Like, I have nothing against big nonprofits. I mean, maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen how they treat, like Tom Kuntz. He helped raise over $100 million for Easter seals. Like, you'd think that if somebody helped raise $100 million for your organization, you'd listen to him. But they didn't. It's like, so he's out at this, event, they're thanking all the big, fundraisers, and he's out and he's at the cocktail with, so he's president of, Century 21, so largest real estate franchise in the world, 140,000 agents in 70 different countries.
Wow.
And so he helped raise over 100 million. So he's at this cocktail party in Northwestern. He's talking to the president of Northwestern. That guy had over 90,000 agents. And they're talking and they're like, hey, you have 90, you have 140. How about if we go ahead and do partnership together? Tom's like, wow, like, that's amazing. Like, huh. So he goes to president of Easter Seals and he says, hey, I got an idea. Okay, what's your idea? He says, I'm more than happy to get up and speak and just tell people what just happened. I mean, if somebody had raised 100 million, I'd just say, yep, whatever you want to do. You want to
Yeah, exactly.
Like, right? Like, but what did they do? No. What do you mean no? Like, what? Like, he has this idea. And listen, I just helped my organization make a lot of money and help Northwestern make a lot of money. Like, there's a lot of money that we can make here. You just aren't structured right. So what he's doing, like, the stories I could tell. And so some of these big nonprofits, like, I don't know, they're money-making machines. And do they really steward the money? I'm not saying they're not. So I'm not against the big nonprofit. I'm just saying the little guy, needs some help. And that's what Life Masteries will do. It's crazy what they'll do. It's absolutely insane what they'll do. So, Justin, any questions or thoughts that you have?
No, I think I'm good, Mark. I appreciate it.
So if you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300, outside the U.S. 630-393-9909. If you'd like to start a coffee connection in your nonprofit, great way to raise funds. I'm just saying, there's a whole bunch of different ideas. Get connected to Life Masteries Institute, a wonderful organization. They will help you in amazing ways. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.